A woman thought she was saving a helpless puppy abandoned in the rain. Its tiny body fit in the palm of her hand, its enormous eyes pleading for rescue. She wrapped it in her scarf, carried it home, and vowed to protect it. But as days passed, strange behaviors emerged. Sounds no puppy should make. Movements far too quick. Eyes that glowed in the darkness. Concerned, she rushed it to the vet. Dr. Richard Coley's face drained of color, his hands freezing as he whispered the truth. What the woman had brought home wasn't a puppy at all, and the revelation shocked everyone. Hey friends! Before we dive into today's heartwarming story, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, because tomorrow I'm dropping another amazing story that you're absolutely going to love. Oh, and I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. Alright, let's dive in. The storm had just intensified, rain hammering down in sheets against the windshield as Angela Dones navigated the narrow city streets. It was late, the kind of late where the world feels abandoned, where every shadow in the alleys seems to move with a life of its own. She was exhausted from her double shift at the hospital and desperate to get home, but fate had other plans. Near an alley entrance, something moved. At first, Angela thought it was just trash caught by the wind. But then the shape trembled, and two enormous reflective eyes caught her headlights, glowing like twin moons in the darkness. Her breath caught in her throat. She pulled over without thinking. The rain soaked through her scrubs the moment she stepped out, but she didn't care. Huddled against the cold metal of a dumpster was the tiniest creature she'd ever seen. No bigger than a teacup, with matted grayish-brown fur and oversized ears that twitched at every sound. Someone left this poor puppy out here to die. Angela's heart clenched. She knelt down slowly, extending her hand. The creature didn't bark or whimper. Instead, it released a soft, chirping squeak, almost bird-like. When her fingers came close, tiny clawed hands wrapped desperately around her thumb. She didn't hesitate. Wrapping the trembling creature in her wool scarf, Angela held it against her chest and drove home through the storm. As the rain pounded against the windshield, she whispered promises into the darkness. "I've got you now. You're safe." But Angela had no idea what she'd really brought home. And when the truth finally came to light, it would turn her entire world upside down. The rain was relentless, drumming against the roof of Angela's sedan like 1,000 impatient fingers. Her windshield wipers worked overtime, struggling to clear the water fast enough for her to see the road ahead. Every muscle in her body ached from the double shift. 12 hours of running between patient rooms, administering medications, holding hands, offering comfort to people she'd never see again. All she wanted was her apartment, a hot shower, and her bed. The streets were empty, the kind of desert that only happens deep into the night when even the bars have closed and the streetlights cast long, lonely shadows. Angela rubbed her tired eyes and turned down another narrow street, a shortcut she'd taken 100 times before. That's when she saw it. A small, dark shape huddled against a dumpster in the mouth of an alley. At first, she thought it might be a plastic bag caught by the wind, but then it moved, just slightly, a tremor that caught her attention. Angela slowed the car, squinting through the rain-streaked glass. Two enormous eyes reflected in her headlights, glowing with an almost otherworldly light. Her heart lurched. Without thinking, Angela pulled over, threw the car into park, and stepped out into the storm. The rain soaked through her scrubs instantly, cold water running down her neck, but she barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on the tiny creature trembling in the shadows. As she approached, she could make out more details. It was impossibly small, no bigger than her hand, with grayish-brown fur plastered flat against its fragile body. Its ears were huge, far too large for its head, and they swiveled toward every sound. The creature's body shook violently, and Angela felt a surge of protective anger rise in her chest. What kind of monster abandons something so helpless? She crouched down slowly, extending her hand with the practiced gentleness of a nurse who'd spent years calming frightened patients. "Hey, little one," she whispered. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The creature didn't bark or whimper like she expected. Instead, it made a soft, chirping sound, delicate and bird-like, almost musical. When Angela's fingers came within reach, tiny hands, no, not paws, hands, wrapped around her thumb with desperate strength. She felt the prick of small claws against her skin, saw the elongated fingers gripping her, and for just a moment something felt off. But then the creature looked up at her with those enormous, pleading eyes, and every doubt melted away. Angela pulled off her wool scarf and wrapped it gently around the trembling body, creating a warm cocoon. She tucked the bundle against her chest and hurried back to the car, shielding the creature from the rain with her arms. As she drove home, one hand on the wheel and the other cradling the tiny life against her heart, Angela felt something she hadn't felt in months: purpose. The creature's body heat seeped through the damp fabric, and she could feel its rapid heartbeat against her palm. "You're safe now," she whispered into the darkness. "I promise. No one's ever going to hurt you again." By the time she reached her apartment building, Angela had already decided. This wasn't just a rescue. This was fate. She was meant to find this puppy, meant to save it. Inside her apartment, she quickly prepared a nest of soft towels on a heating pad, setting it to low. The creature chirped softly as she placed it down, those huge eyes tracking her every movement. Angela knelt beside it, stroking the damp fur with one finger. "You're going to be okay," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've got you now." And in that moment, Angela Dones had no idea that the tiny creature staring back at her wasn't a puppy at all, and that the truth, when it finally came, would shatter everything she believed. Angela's apartment felt warmer the moment she stepped inside with the tiny creature cradled against her chest. She kicked off her wet shoes and moved quickly to the kitchen, her nurse's instincts taking over. The creature needed warmth, food, and safety, in that order. She laid it gently on a clean dish towel spread across the counter, and for the first time, she could really see it under the light. The fur was softer than she'd expected, a mix of gray and brown that seemed to shimmer slightly as it dried. Those eyes, impossibly large and dark, followed her every movement with an intensity that felt almost human. Angela warmed some milk in the microwave, testing the temperature on her wrist the way she'd seen mothers do with baby bottles. She filled an eyedropper and brought it to the creature's mouth. At first, it hesitated, but then its tiny pink tongue darted out, lapping eagerly at the milk. Angela watched, mesmerized, as its belly gradually grew round and full. "There you go," she whispered, stroking its head with one finger. "That's better, isn't it?" Once it had eaten, Angela prepared a makeshift bed, a shoebox lined with the softest fabric she could find, placed in the corner of her bedroom. She set the creature inside carefully, tucking a washcloth around it like a blanket. "Okay, little one. You sleep here tonight, and I'll be right over there if you need me." But the moment Angela turned to leave, the creature released a series of distressed chirps, high-pitched and urgent, nothing like any puppy sound she'd ever heard. It scrambled to the edge of the box, those elongated fingers gripping the cardboard edge, eyes wide with what looked like panic. Angela's heart melted. All right. You can sleep with me." She scooped up the creature and placed it on her pillow. Almost immediately, it curled into a tight ball, pressing itself against her cheek. Angela lay awake for a long time, listening to its tiny, rapid breaths, feeling the warmth of its small body against her face. This is what purpose feels like, she thought. This is what I've been missing. By morning, sunlight was streaming through the curtains, and the creature was still tucked against her neck, making soft clicking sounds in its sleep. Angela smiled and carefully extracted herself from the bed. As she watched it stretch and yawn, revealing rows of surprisingly sharp little teeth, she realized it needed a name. "Lily," she said softly. "You look like a lily. Delicate and sweet." The creature, Lily, chirped in response, and Angela chose to believe it was approval. That first full day together felt like a dream. Lily explored the apartment cautiously, sniffing at furniture, climbing onto the windowsill with startling agility, watching the world outside with those enormous reflective eyes. Angela couldn't stop taking photos, couldn't stop marveling at how perfectly this tiny creature fit into her life. She posted a picture on social media. "Meet my new rescue puppy. Found her abandoned in the rain last night. Isn't she precious?" The responses came quickly. "OMG, so cute. What breed is that? Those eyes are huge. Never seen a puppy like that before. Are you sure that's a dog? Looks kinda weird, TBH. Cutest thing ever, but what is it?" Angela frowned at the comments, feeling defensive. People just didn't understand. Lily was special, that's all. Unique. Not every puppy looked the same. She turned off her phone and looked down at Lily, who was now perched on the arm of the couch, watching her with that unsettling intensity. "They don't get you," Angela said, reaching out to stroke the soft fur. "But I do. We were meant to find each other." And as Lily leaned into her touch, making that strange chirping sound again, Angela pushed away the tiny voice in the back of her mind, the one whispering that something about those hands, those eyes, those sounds wasn't quite right. The first week with Lily passed in a blur of sleepless nights and growing unease that Angela refused to acknowledge. She told herself it was normal for rescued animals to have quirks, that every puppy was different, that love and patience would smooth out the rough edges. But the oddities kept accumulating. Lily never barked. Not once. Instead, she made clicking sounds, sharp, rhythmic chirps that echoed strangely in the quiet apartment. Sometimes, late at night, the chirps would turn into high-pitched whistles that made Angela's skin prickle. When she mentioned it to her coworker Sarah, Sarah had laughed. "Maybe she's part bird," she joked. Angela hadn't found it funny. The eyes were worse. During the day, they were merely unusually large. But at night, when Angela woke to use the bathroom or get water, she'd catch the faint greenish glow reflecting back at her from across the room. Like a cat's eyes, but brighter somehow. More intense. And the way Lily moved, it wasn't right. Puppies were clumsy, uncoordinated, all oversized paws and tumbling energy. Lily moved like liquid shadow, scaling the curtains with impossible ease, leaping from the floor to the kitchen counter in a single bound that defied physics. More than once, Angela had found her clinging to the ceiling corner above the bathroom door, those enormous eyes tracking her every movement. "You're just athletic," Angela said one evening, watching Lily dangle upside down from the shower rod by what looked like tiny hands, not paws. "Very athletic." Lily whistled in response. The food situation was becoming impossible to ignore. Angela had bought 3 different brands of puppy kibble, each supposedly irresistible to young dogs. Lily wouldn't touch any of them. She'd sniff the bowl, make a sharp chittering sound that felt almost like judgment, and walk away. But when Angela prepared chicken for dinner and a piece of raw meat fell to the floor, Lily was on it in seconds, those sharp little teeth tearing into it with disturbing efficiency. Angela started buying raw chicken specifically for her. It felt wrong, but what else could she do? Let Lily starve? Her sister Rebecca visited on Thursday, bringing wine and concern in equal measure. The moment she saw Lily perched on the armrest of the couch, Rebecca's face went pale. "Angela," she said slowly, setting down her purse. "What? What is that?" "What do you mean?" "That's Lily. I told you about her. That's not a dog." Rebecca moved closer, squinting. "Look at its hands, Angela. Those aren't paws. And its ears." "She's just a unique breed mix," Angela said quickly. Too quickly. The vet said. "You haven't taken her to a vet yet, have you?" The silence stretched between them. "I've been busy," Angela said finally. "She seems healthy. Eating well, active." "Active? Angela, I just watched her climb your bookshelf like a squirrel. Puppies don't do that." Rebecca's voice rose with each word. "And that sound she's making, that clicking thing, that's not normal. Something is wrong. Stop it." Angela felt defensive anger rising in her chest. "You're scaring me for no reason. She's just special. Not every animal fits into a neat little box." Rebecca opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. She gathered her purse and headed for the door. "I love you," she said quietly, "but you need to get that thing checked out. Please." After Rebecca left, Angela sat on the couch, Lily curled in her lap. She stroked the soft fur, feeling the tiny, rapid heartbeat beneath her fingers. When she looked down, Lily was staring up at her with those impossibly large eyes, and for just a moment, Angela saw something in that gaze. Something too intelligent, too knowing for a puppy. That night, Angela woke at 3 a.m. to use the bathroom. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she realized Lily wasn't in her usual spot at the foot of the bed. A soft clicking sound drew her gaze upward. Lily was perched on top of the dresser, perfectly still, staring down at Angela with glowing eyes. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. Angela's heart hammered in her chest. "Lily," she whispered. "Come down, baby." The creature tilted its head, too far, at an angle no puppy's neck should bend, and made a sound Angela had never heard before. Low and guttural, somewhere between a growl and a purr, but fundamentally other. "You're just a strange little thing," Angela said, her voice shaking slightly as she forced a laugh. "That's all. Just strange." But as she lay back down, pulling the covers up to her chin while Lily continued her vigil from above, Angela couldn't quite silence the voice in her head that whispered, "This isn't right. Something is very, very wrong." By the second week, Angela's neighbors had started to notice. Mrs. Patterson from across the hall knocked on her door one afternoon, her face tight with concern. "Angela, dear, I don't mean to pry, but I saw your pet through the window this morning." "Lily," Angela said, forcing a smile. "Her name is Lily." "Right. Lily." Mrs. Patterson's eyes darted past Angela into the apartment. "The thing is, I watched her creep along your windowsill, and honey, that didn't look like any puppy I've ever seen. The way she moved, clinging to the glass like that." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Are you sure you know what that is?" Angela felt her defenses slam into place. She's a rescue. She's had a hard life. Of course she's going to be a little different. Different is one thing. But that creature. Her name is Lily and she's fine. Angela's voice came out sharper than intended. "Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Patterson, but we're doing just fine." She closed the door perhaps a bit too firmly, her heart pounding. Through the living room window she could see Lily pressed against the glass, those huge eyes reflecting the afternoon sun, her oddly jointed fingers splayed against the pane. She's just a puppy, Angela told herself. Just a puppy. But privately, in the quiet moments she wouldn't admit even to herself, the worry was growing into something closer to fear. The nights had become almost unbearable. Lily was most alive in the darkness, skittering across the ceiling, her glowing eyes leaving trails in Angela's vision when she dared to look. The chirping would build to a crescendo around 2 a.m., sometimes accompanied by scratching sounds inside the walls that Angela tried desperately to convince herself were just pipes or wind. The food situation had escalated beyond uncomfortable into genuinely frightening. Angela had given up on dog food entirely and now kept raw chicken in the refrigerator specifically for Lily. But Lily had grown possessive of her meals, hunching over the plate with a territorial intensity that seemed more wild animal than pet. When Angela tried to remove an uneaten piece one evening, Lily had hissed, a sharp sibilant sound that sent ice down Angela's spine, and swiped at her hand with those hooked claws. Angela had pulled back just in time, staring at the tiny creature who stared back with absolutely no recognition, no affection. Just hunger and warning. "Okay," Angela had whispered, backing away slowly. "Okay, it's yours. I'm sorry." Friday afternoon, desperate for normalcy, Angela decided to take Lily outside. Fresh air would be good for both of them. Maybe in the daylight, surrounded by normal, everyday things, she could convince herself that everything was fine. She placed Lily in a small pet carrier and walked to the building's small courtyard garden. The moment she opened the carrier, Lily burst out and made a strange chittering sound, her body pressing low to the grass. That's when Mr. Chen's golden retriever, Buddy, appeared at the fence separating the yards. Buddy was the gentlest dog in the building, beloved by children, afraid of his own shadow. He approached the fence with his usual dopey curiosity, tail wagging, and let out a friendly bark. Lily went completely still. The transformation was instant and terrifying. Her body tensed, every muscle coiling like a spring. Her ears flattened against her head. And then she opened her mouth and released a sound that Angela would hear in her nightmares for years to come. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a whimper or a growl. It was something primal and ancient, an ear-piercing shriek that started high and dropped into a guttural, rattling sound that seemed to come from something much larger than Lily's tiny body. A predator's sound. A warning that transcended species. Buddy's entire demeanor changed in an instant. His tail dropped, his ears flattened, and he released a whimper of pure terror before backing away from the fence, stumbling over his own feet in his desperation to escape. Even from a distance, Angela could see him trembling. Mr. Chen appeared at his back door, alarmed. "Buddy, what's wrong, boy?" Angela stood frozen, her hands shaking, staring down at Lily. The creature, because in that moment, Angela couldn't make herself think the word puppy, was still in that predatory crouch, still making that horrible sound, those enormous eyes locked on the fleeing dog with an intensity that made Angela's stomach drop. "What are you?" The words escaped Angela's lips in a whisper. Lily's head swiveled toward her. Too fast at that impossible angle, and for the first time since finding her in that alley, Angela felt genuine fear. Not worry. Not concern. Fear. She scooped Lily up, ignoring the way those claws dug into her arms, and rushed back inside. Her hands trembled as she locked the door behind her, her breath coming in short gasps. Mr. Chen appeared in the courtyard, calling after her. "Ms. Doness? What was that thing?" That's not a dog. Angela didn't answer. She couldn't. She placed Lily carefully on the floor and backed away, watching as the creature immediately scaled the bookshelf and perched on top, those glowing eyes tracking her every movement. She placed Lily in a small pet carrier and walked to the building's small courtyard garden. The moment she opened the carrier, Lily burst out and made a strange chittering sound, her body pressing low to the grass. That's when Mr. Chen's golden retriever, Buddy, appeared at the fence separating the yards. Buddy was the gentlest dog in the building, beloved by children, afraid of his own shadow. He approached the fence with his usual dopey curiosity, tail wagging, and let out a friendly bark. Lily went completely still. The transformation was instant and terrifying. Her body tensed, every muscle coiling like a spring. Her ears flattened against her head. And then she opened her mouth and released a sound that Angela would hear in her nightmares for years to come. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a whimper or a growl. It was something primal and ancient, an ear-piercing shriek that started high and dropped into a guttural, rattling sound that seemed to come from something much larger than Lily's tiny body. A predator's sound. A warning that transcended species. Buddy's entire demeanor changed in an instant. His tail dropped, his ears flattened, and he released a whimper of pure terror before backing away from the fence, stumbling over his own feet in his desperation to escape. Even from a distance, Angela could see him trembling. Mr. Chen appeared at his back door, alarmed. "Buddy, what's wrong, boy?" Angela stood frozen, her hands shaking, staring down at Lily. The creature, because in that moment, Angela couldn't make herself think the word puppy, was still in that predatory crouch, still making that horrible sound, those enormous eyes locked on the fleeing dog with an intensity that made Angela's stomach drop. "What are you?" The words escaped Angela's lips in a whisper. Lily's head swiveled toward her. Too fast at that impossible angle, and for the first time since finding her in that alley, Angela felt genuine fear. Not worry. Not concern. Fear. She scooped Lily up, ignoring the way those claws dug into her arms, and rushed back inside. Her hands trembled as she locked the door behind her, her breath coming in short gasps. Mr. Chen appeared in the courtyard, calling after her. "Ms. Dones? What was that thing? That's not a dog." Angela didn't answer. She couldn't. She placed Lily carefully on the floor and backed away, watching as the creature immediately scaled the bookshelf and perched on top, those glowing eyes tracking her every movement. Angela grabbed her phone with shaking hands and pulled up the veterinary clinic she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. Her finger hovered over the call button. Rebecca's voice echoed in her mind. Something is wrong. Mrs. Patterson's question haunted her. "Are you sure you know what that is?" And her own whispered words. "What are you?" Angela pressed call. "Animal Care Clinic. This is Jennifer speaking." "Yes, hi." Angela's voice cracked. "I need an emergency appointment. Today, if possible. I found a." She looked up at Lily, perched above her like a gargoyle, and felt the last of her denial finally, completely shatter. "I need someone to tell me what I've been keeping in my home." The morning sky was gray and threatening as Angela placed Lily into the pet carrier with trembling hands. Lily chirped, that unsettling bird-like sound, and pressed herself against the back of the carrier, those enormous eyes never leaving Angela's face. "It's okay," Angela whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring Lily or herself. "The vet will tell us everything's fine. You're just unique. That's all." But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The drive across town felt endless. Every red light was a minor eternity. Every turn brought her closer to answers she wasn't sure she wanted. Angela kept glancing at the carrier in the passenger seat, where Lily sat perfectly still, unnaturally still, watching the world pass by with those reflective eyes. The animal care clinic's waiting room was chaos. Dogs barked and strained at their leashes, cats yowled from carriers, a parrot somewhere squawked loudly. But the moment Angela walked in with Lily's carrier, a strange hush seemed to fall over the nearest animals. A terrier that had been barking non-stop went suddenly quiet, ears flattening. A cat in a carrier hissed and retreated to the back corner. Angela set the carrier on her lap and sat down, acutely aware of the stares. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, pointed from across the room. "Mommy, look at that puppy. Why are its eyes so big?" The mother leaned over, squinted at the carrier, and her expression changed immediately. She pulled her daughter closer, her hand protective on the child's shoulder. "Don't point, sweetie," she said quietly, but she didn't look away from Lily. Didn't stop frowning. The receptionist called Angela's name. Angela Dones? But when she glanced at the carrier to update the chart, she paused. Stared. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She said nothing, but Angela saw the confusion flicker across her face. "Exam room 3, the receptionist said finally, her voice tight. The examination room was sterile, bright and cold. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The steel table gleamed. Angela placed the carrier on the table and stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself. Dr. Richard Coley entered moments later. Middle-aged, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the confident manner of someone who'd spent decades with animals. He smiled warmly at Angela. "Ms. Dones, I understand you have some concerns about your new pet." "I found her in an alley 2 weeks ago," Angela said, the words tumbling out. "In the rain. She was so small, so helpless. I thought she was a puppy, but she's been acting strange. Really strange. My neighbors think." Her voice broke. "I just need you to tell me everything's okay." Dr. Coley's expression softened. "Let's take a look, shall we?" He opened the carrier gently, and Lily emerged slowly, cautiously. Under the harsh examination lights, every odd feature was magnified. The disproportionate eyes, the elongated fingers, the way her ears swiveled independently like radar dishes. Dr. Coley's professional smile remained in place as he began his examination. "Let's see here." He checked her teeth first, gently opening her mouth. Angela watched his face carefully. Watched the smile falter slightly. The teeth were sharp, arranged in an unusual pattern. Not quite right. He moved to her ears next, those enormous paper-thin ears with visible veins running through the membrane. His brow furrowed. Then the claws. Hook-like, curved, built for gripping. Dr. Coley's hands moved to her jaw structure, palpating gently, checking alignment. His fingers paused. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "Doctor." Angela's voice was small. He didn't answer. His professional curiosity had shifted to something else. Concern, then something deeper. Dawning realization. The color began to drain from his face. His hands, steady through decades of practice, began to tremble slightly. Lily chirped, that strange otherworldly sound that didn't belong to any dog, and the noise echoed in the clinical space, wrong and alien and undeniable. Dr. Coley's pen slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. The sound seemed to snap him back. He looked up at Angela, and she saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Fear. Ms. Doness, he said slowly, his voice carefully controlled. I need you to tell me exactly where you found this animal. Every detail. Why? Angela's heart hammered. What's wrong? What is she? Dr. Coley stepped back from the examination table, his eyes never leaving Lily, who sat perfectly still, watching him with those enormous, knowing eyes. Ms. Doness, he said quietly, and she heard the tremor beneath the professional calm. This is not a puppy. This isn't even a dog. The room seemed to tilt. Angela gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. What? Silence crashed through the examination room like a physical force. Angela stared at Dr. Coley, her mind refusing to process his words. What? The word came out as barely a whisper. That's impossible. I found her in an alley. She's a puppy. Look at her. Dr. Coley stepped back slowly, his gaze never leaving Lily, who sat perfectly still on the examination table, those enormous eyes tracking his movement. He took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of undeniable truth. Ms. Doness, this is an exotic marsupial. Based on the physical characteristics I've observed, the dental structure, the membrane between the limbs, the eye placement and size, I believe this is a rare species of possum or sugar glider, possibly not native to this country at all. A what? Angela's voice rose. No, you're wrong. She's just an unusual breed. Please look. Dr. Coley gently lifted one of Lily's tiny hands. See these? These aren't paws. These are opposable thumbs. Dogs don't have opposable thumbs. He carefully extended her arm, revealing the thin membrane stretching between her limbs. This is a patagium, a gliding membrane. It's how these animals move between trees in the wild. Angela stared at the membrane, her vision blurring with tears. How had she not seen it before? Dr. Coley continued, his tone professional but gentle. The eyes, they're positioned for nocturnal hunting and evolved for night vision. The dental structure is designed for insects and tree sap, not commercial dog food. The chirping sounds you've been hearing? That's how these animals communicate. He paused, meeting Angela's devastated gaze. What you've been caring for isn't domesticated. It's a wild animal. But I found her abandoned. Ms. Doness. Dr. Coley's voice grew firmer. You've been keeping an exotic species in your apartment. An animal likely obtained through illegal wildlife trafficking. These creatures are smuggled internationally, sold on black markets to uninformed buyers who think they're getting something cute and manageable. When the reality sets in, the specialized care, the nocturnal behavior, the legal risks, many owners panic and abandon them. Angela felt the room spinning. You think someone bought her? And just threw her away. Finding her in that alley, it fits the pattern perfectly. Dr. Coley's expression was grim. These animals need highly specialized diets, specific environmental conditions, veterinary care that most people can't provide. They're not pets, Ms. Doness. Their instincts can never be fully suppressed. As she matures, those predatory behaviors you've been seeing will only intensify. I was hurting her. The realization hit Angela like a physical blow. All this time, I thought I was saving her, but I was hurting her. You didn't know, Dr. Coley said softly. But now you do. And now we have a responsibility. Not just to this animal, but to potentially others. If she came from a trafficking ring, there could be more suffering animals out there. Angela looked at Lily, who sat on the table making soft clicking sounds, completely oblivious to the conversation determining her fate. The creature she'd loved, the companion who'd filled her lonely apartment with purpose. She'd never been Angela's at all. "What happens now?" Angela asked, her voice breaking. "I'm required by law to notify wildlife authorities. They'll evaluate her, determine her exact species, and place her in an appropriate rehabilitation facility. If she's from a trafficking operation, they'll investigate." Dr. Coley moved closer, his tone softening. "I know this is devastating. I can see how much you care for her. But Ms. Dones, sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let go." "She trusted me," Angela whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "When I found her, she was so scared and she trusted me. And you saved her life. Don't forget that. If you hadn't found her that night, she would have died in that alley. But saving her means more than just taking her home. It means giving her what she actually needs, even when it breaks your heart." Angela pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to hold back the sob building in her chest. Every moment of the past 2 weeks flashed through her mind. The rescue the first night, the growing unease, the denial. She'd seen the signs. She'd ignored them all because she'd wanted so desperately to believe the story she'd told herself. "I have to give her up." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Dr. Coley said gently. "You do." Angela sat in her car outside the clinic, rain beginning to fall again in soft drops against the windshield. Inside the carrier on the passenger seat, Lily chirped softly, oblivious to the fact that her entire world was about to change. Angela's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as she tried to process everything Dr. Coley had told her. Her phone buzzed. Then again. And again. Frowning, Angela pulled it from her purse. The screen was lit up with notifications. Dozens of them, scrolling faster than she could read. Text messages. Social media tags. Emails. Her heart began to pound as she opened the first notification. It was a post from someone she didn't know, shared in a local community group. "You won't believe what this woman thought was a puppy." Face screaming in fear, exploding head. Below the caption was a photo. Angela leaving the clinic, carrier in hand, her face clearly visible. The post already had hundreds of shares and the comments were exploding in real time. How could she not know that wasn't a dog? She was just trying to help. Leave her alone. That thing could have hurt someone. Totally irresponsible. Poor woman. Poor animal. This is heartbreaking. Angela's hands trembled as she scrolled through the increasingly vicious debate. Within 2 hours, the post had gone viral. Someone had tagged the local news station. By the time she reached her apartment building that evening, Lily still chirping softly in her carrier, there were news vans parked outside. Reporters with cameras and microphones swarmed the entrance. "Ms. Dones, can you tell us about the animal? Did you know it wasn't a dog? How long have you been keeping it?" Angela clutched the carrier to her chest and pushed through the crowd, refusing to answer, her face burning with shame and anger. Behind her she could hear Mrs. Patterson's voice. "We all knew something was off. The sounds it made at night." Inside her apartment, Angela locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. She pulled out her phone again. A mistake. The story had spread beyond local groups. National news outlets were picking it up. Local woman's puppy turns out to be exotic marsupial. Wildlife trafficking suspected. Online communities erupted. Animal rights activists demanded immediate intervention. Exotic pet enthusiasts debated whether sugar gliders could be domesticated. Critics called her reckless and ignorant. Supporters called her compassionate but misguided. Her town was divided. The next day, Angela needed groceries. She made it 3 aisles before someone recognized her. Whispers followed her through the store. Parents pulled their children closer as she passed. One woman approached, her eyes kind. "You saved that animal's life," she said softly. "Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that." But moments later, another woman hissed at her from behind a display of cereal boxes. "You put everyone in this building in danger. What if that thing had attacked someone's child?" Angela abandoned her half-filled cart and fled. That evening, the local news aired a segment. Should exotic animals be allowed in residential areas? Tonight, we examine a case that has divided our community. Angela's photo filled the screen. They interviewed Dr. Coley, who carefully explained the dangers. They interviewed her neighbors, some defending her, others condemning her. The state wildlife department issued a public statement. An investigation is underway regarding the illegal possession of protected wildlife. The animal in question will be surrendered to proper authorities for evaluation and care. Dr. Coley's words haunted her. These animals aren't meant to be pets. Their instincts can never be fully suppressed. Angela had done research in the days since the vet visit, scrolling through academic articles late into the night while Lily prowled her apartment. Marsupials needed species-specific socialization, interaction with their own kind to develop proper behaviors. They needed specialized diets calibrated to their metabolism, complex environments that mimicked their natural habitats with branches for climbing and gliding, darkness for their nocturnal cycles. Everything Angela couldn't provide. "Have I been slowly harming you?" Angela whispered, her voice breaking. "All this time thinking I was saving you, was I just hurting you in a different way?" Lily chirped and nuzzled closer, seeking warmth, seeking comfort from the only caregiver she'd known. And that's when the truth finally crystallized in Angela's mind with devastating clarity. Keeping Lily served Angela's needs, not Lily's. Angela needed to feel useful, needed, important. She needed to rescue something because it made her feel less powerless, less alone. But Lily needed freedom to be what nature intended. Not a pet, not a companion, but a wild creature with instincts and needs that Angela's love could never fulfill. "You deserve more than I can give you," Angela whispered into Lily's soft fur. "So much more." When morning arrived, the decision was made. It didn't hurt any less, but it was right. Angela knew it in her bones. She moved through her apartment like a ghost, gathering Lily's belongings. The soft blanket she'd first wrapped her in. The toy mouse Lily had never played with but sometimes carried in her mouth. The wool scarf from that rainy rescue night, still bearing the faint scent of wet fur and desperation. Each item intensified the grief building in Angela's chest. Finally, she lifted the pet carrier. Empty, waiting. Lily was perched on the bookshelf, watching with those knowing eyes. Angela approached slowly, her vision blurred with tears. "Come here, sweetheart. It's time." Lily chirped softly and climbed onto Angela's outstretched hands. Angela held her close one last time, breathing in her scent, feeling that rapid heartbeat against her palm. Then, gently, she placed Lily inside the carrier. Lily immediately chirped in protest, her tiny hands reaching through the mesh, those enormous eyes wide with confusion. Angela pressed her palm against the carrier, matching her hand to Lily's. "I'm not abandoning you," Angela whispered, tears streaming freely now. "I'm setting you free to be what you really are. You're not meant to live in an apartment, climbing my curtains and eating raw chicken from a plate. You're meant to glide between trees under moonlight. You're meant to be with others like you. You're meant to be wild. Lily chirped again, softer this time, and Angela's heart shattered. Forgive me, she whispered. Forgive me for not knowing sooner. Forgive me for loving you the wrong way. But I'm going to love you the right way now, even if it kills me. She picked up the carrier, grabbed her keys, and walked toward the door. Every step felt like walking toward her own ending. But it was the only path forward that honored what Lily truly needed. And sometimes, Angela was learning, love meant having the courage to let go. The drive to the State Wildlife Rehabilitation Center took Angela through countryside she'd never seen before. Rolling hills, tree-lined roads, open fields stretching toward distant forests. Each mile felt heavier than the last, finality approaching with every turn of the wheel. In the carrier beside her, Lily chirped periodically. Those soft clicking sounds that had once seemed so mysterious now heartbreakingly familiar. She was oblivious to what was coming, trusting Angela completely, just as she had that rainy night in the alley. You're going to meet others like you, Angela whispered, her voice thick with tears. You're going to learn how to glide and climb and be wild. You're going to be free, baby. Really free. The rehabilitation center appeared at the end of a long gravel drive, a sprawling complex of buildings surrounded by dense forest, enclosed habitats visible through the trees. Wildlife specialists met her at the entrance with solemn professionalism but genuine kindness in their eyes. They'd seen this before, the heartbreak of surrender, the agony of doing the right thing. Inside the intake office, Angela answered questions about the rescue while specialists examined Lily through the carrier mesh. Where exactly had she found her? What had she been feeding her? Had there been any signs of injury or illness? Based on preliminary observation, one specialist said gently, we believe she's a rare gliding possum, critically endangered in the wild. If she came from traffickers, you may have saved her from a fate worse than that alley. Many of these animals die in transport or shortly after being abandoned. Angela nodded numbly, unable to speak. Then came the hardest moment. It's time, the specialist said softly. Angela knelt on the floor, pressing her forehead against the carrier mesh. Lily's enormous eyes stared back at her, tiny hands pressed against the mesh from the inside, mirroring Angela's hand on the outside. For a long moment they stayed like that, separated by wire but still connected. Thank you for trusting me, Angela whispered. Thank you for letting me be part of your story. I love you enough to let you go. The specialist gently lifted the carrier from Angela's hands. Lily chirped, that sound Angela would hear in her dreams, and reached toward her through the mesh. We'll take excellent care of her, the specialist promised. She's going to have a beautiful life. Angela watched them carry Lily down the corridor, the sound of clicking calls fading with each step. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, her chest hollow and aching. When she finally walked to her car, her arms felt wrong, empty, missing the familiar weight of the carrier. She sat in the driver's seat, unable to move, unable to start the engine. I did the right thing, she whispered to the empty car. I did the right thing. She repeated it like a prayer, like if she said it enough times, the pain might ease. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Angela's apartment felt unbearably empty. She caught herself listening for chirps that didn't come, looking for glowing eyes in the darkness, reaching to pet soft for that wasn't there. The grief was profound, physical, relentless. But beneath the grief, certainty grew. She had made the right choice. 2 weeks later, an email arrived from the rehabilitation center with photos attached. Angela opened it with trembling hands. There was Lily, healthy, active, gliding between branches in a massive enclosed habitat. And beside her, 2 other possums, playing, socializing, teaching her to be what she was meant to be. Angela cried, but this time, peace stirred beneath the tears. "She's where she belongs," she whispered. One evening, Angela returned to the alley where she'd found Lily. She stood in the exact spot, remembering that rainy night, that tiny trembling creature, those enormous pleading eyes. She placed a small bouquet of flowers against the dumpster. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty alley. "Thank you for teaching me." Months passed. The viral storm faded. The town debates quieted. Angela received an invitation to speak at local schools about wildlife conservation, and she accepted. She shared Lily's story, not as a tale of her compassion, but as a teaching moment about the complexity of love and responsibility. Compassion isn't just emotion, she told classrooms full of attentive children. It's wisdom and sacrifice. It's honoring the truth even when it destroys what you want to believe. True love means doing what's best for them, not what's easiest for you. She began volunteering at the Wildlife Center on weekends. One Saturday, through the trees, she glimpsed Lily in the distance, gliding gracefully between branches, fully wild, fully free. Lily didn't recognize her, didn't pause or chirp or remember the woman who'd saved her from the rain. Angela smiled through her tears. "That's okay," she whispered. "You're home." Because sometimes, she'd learned, the most important love stories aren't about holding on. They're about finding the courage to let go, about loving someone enough to give them what they truly need, even when it shatters your heart. And in letting go, Angela had found something she'd never expected. Not an ending, but a transformation. Not loss, but wisdom earned through pain. Sometimes the scariest truths bring the most important lessons. And sometimes love means saying goodbye.
Thank you so much for watching Lily and Angela's story. If it touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories that will make you think, feel, and see the world differently. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today, because sometimes the stories that break our hearts are the ones that teach us the most about love. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought. Have you ever had to make an impossible choice out of love? We'd love to hear your story. Until next time, remember, true love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about having the courage to let go. Thanks again for being here. We'll see you in the next one.